So we are back live here at the intermediary Charlie Tango studio. I'm here with Gerd Leonhard.
Hello.
Welcome here.
Hello.
The CEO of the Futures Agency. Now we're at the end of the Digital Copenhagen conference here in Copenhagen.
Mm-hmm.
You started out this morning with your keynote where you were talking about technology and humanity and the future. And then with a bracket and what that means in terms of marketing.
Okay.
Now you covered on a lot of different topics, but maybe just for the viewers out there, I mean, if you were to briefly explain the essence of that.
Yeah, as a futurist, I talk about roughly the next 5, 7, 10 years.
Yeah.
And my work is not really about predictions, it's about foresight. And so I shared some of that this morning, like, in 10 years, basically technology will be infinitely capable.
Yeah.
10G, what have you, 10 billion people on the internet, quantum computing. So that means that whatever we can think of doing, whether it's marketing or not, we probably can, right?
Yeah.
So the key question really is not so much about feasibility but about the question of why, right?
Yeah.
And I think marketing is about, in its best form, about creating relationships and experiences. And what we have today, to a large degree, is the mousetrap model, right? Like we build a mousetrap of of surveillance and of tracking, and then we get leads, and we can do marketing that way. But I think the future really is quite a little bit different. First, there's a big techlash, which I talked about. People are opposing this idea that they're going to be constantly tracked for marketing purposes, right? Mm-hmm. And that's becoming a major movement. And now we have the GDPR, of course, and all the idea of sovereignty of European data. So I think we have to think a little bit deeper about what marketing means in the future.
Okay.
I think tracking and monitoring and basically chasing people will never go away completely, right?
It's there.
Right?
It's there for
but
good.
Are we going to track more and do more surveillance and go deeper? I showed the example of Cambridge Analytica, who said, we can track all these people. We have 5,000 data points. It's a good thing, as if it was not evil, right?
Yeah.
And I'm saying, like, it may not be evil when it's about doing a few things with it, but when you get really good at it, like Facebook is the giant mousetrap, right? Then it's actually quite evil, because it's a gradual thing. With technology, it's like, as I said in the last slide, magic, manic, toxic. Mm-hmm. First it's magic, then it's a little bit manic, overdone, right? And then it's toxic for humans. So what we need to be careful with is to avoid the sort of toxic minefields, where we go into and then people hate us for what we've done with marketing.
Exactly.
And this has been happening with Facebook and others.
Yeah.
But
so they stepped over the boundary, so to speak.
Yes, boundary, but also more engagement, more relationships, more content, more narrative. Patagonia has a great video about this new activity that they're doing. It's, what is it called, active something. I didn't get to show it because time was out, but basically the idea is to create something what you stand for and attract people rather than force people into data submission. Right? That's not necessarily new, but the next 10 years, I think brands are going to be hated if they go down the old approach of tracking and pounding.
Okay. Yeah. So does that mean that we are at this point where, because of technology and because of the availability of data, we literally can do everything, as opposed to 10 years ago when we could do much, but not everything?
Well, 10 years ago we couldn't do much at all, because it basically wasn't working, and tracking was cookies and those kind of things. Today we can do a lot of things, but it's still relatively little compared to 10 years from now. Today we can track Spotify and what you read on the Kindle and Amazon and what have you. It's quite sophisticated, programmatic advertising and so on. But in 10 years, we're going to track your biome, your genome, your driving, your data, your money, your healthcare. We're going to track everything. And then it becomes like, if you're not, that's like 10,000x of what we can do today.
Yes.
And I think we have to be very careful about which way we're going down here, right? Because we may have the perfect mousetrap, but then people will hate us for doing it.
Exactly.
And then we have nothing. So it's, marketing is all about relationships, and machines don't understand. And this is the other thing, is that we may have a lot of data, but data is not us, Data is just a slice of reality.
It's just a representation of us.
Yeah, like, if I have lots of data about you, I can say you're probably going to buy this, but you're still not the same in the data,
No.
You're still 95% different. And so we should also say, I think I quoted Ronald Kors, who said, if you torture data long enough, it will confess to anything. So we shouldn't be so sure, we can't really trust AI,
No.
I don't think we should ever really trust AI. This is just a tool.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It's like, like we use a hammer to build a house.
Yeah.
We don't pray to the hammer.
No. So the point is that we have all this data now. We can do a number of things, and obviously Cambridge Analytica and the picture of Facebook being sort of this big monolith of potential evil. If we're already at that point now, with all the extra data points that we can gather within the next 10 years, I mean, where will that take us?
Well, I use the theme of too much of a good thing.
Yeah.
This is exactly what happened with Facebook. It was too good for it, and it is too good for its own, because now it's so powerful and making $150 million a day.
Yeah.
At that point you have to give back. You have to do what's called in the environment the circular economy.
Yeah.
You have to give back to the system and not destroy the system. And Facebook is destroying the system of media, of democracy, not necessarily by design or by evil intent, by consequence of being so good. Right, and 2.5 billion users and so on. So I think this is something that you have to keep in mind. This is an ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
You can't just take everything out of the ecosystem, us, right, and then say thank you. Now we're moving on to the next one.
Yeah.
So, and this is also a question of government. Government needs to step in when such cartels exist.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And we've had the European Commission stepping in on many of those things.
Yeah.
It's just like climate change. It's not necessarily easy for us. For example, a CO2 tax on meat, or driving a car. It's not good for us in the sense of money or meat, eating meat. But it may be necessary to solve the problem. So in some ways.
So do we need governmental forces to go in there and actually regulate this? Is that what you're saying?
In some cases, yes, but generally speaking, we need ethics.
Yeah.
I mentioned the Digital Ethics Council, right?
Exactly.
And ethics, this is the important part. Ethics is exactly about knowing what you may have a right to do, but what is not the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Right? And this is exactly, again, Facebook problem, right?
Yeah.
It has the right to do this because you signed, right?
Yeah.
But it's not the right thing to do.
No.
And so ethics is about the players themselves, the users, the government coming together and saying, that's probably not the right thing to do, even though it could make a lot of money, right? But it's probably not something we want.
But do you think in that concept? And let's talk about this ethics concept. Do you think ethics is strong enough for us as humans to actually stop such a thing as Facebook or the next thing?
No, not Facebook, but
use all the technology and all the data available to ultimately be evil, right?
Well, when it's too big, like the oil companies used to be, or Facebook or Microsoft used to be, or AT&T or whatever, then it's too late for just that, right?
Yeah.
But in our society, ethics is what regulates most of the things. For example, alcohol or cigarettes. We can smoke anytime we want, pretty much. We can drink alcohol, but we don't drink alcohol all day. We have social contracts, and we have kind of rules that are agreed on. Or genetic engineering, we have certain rules, or nuclear power, or so. What we need to have is basically a combination of rules, ethics, social contract, values that says, okay, this is probably not good for us. And when it's so big, there's no other force than government to step in and say, no, this is really out of whack here, it's dysfunctional, right?
So we need that as a catalyst of getting that going.
Yes, I think we need it as a catalyst and also as a reminder. I mean, this is the role of government, right? It's the balance between technology and science, and then the users and the population, right? Otherwise, if there's no balance, then science and technology just take over, right?
So we used to. So now we talk about government as being the force that can stop corporates from, with the access of data, doing ultimately evil, right? Now, back in the day, government were supposed to be, or expected to be, those forces of evil, right? I mean, Big Brother watching you, and still you have places in the world where governmental forces are the forces of evil.
Right.
So where does that put us? I mean, who should we trust? With all that data out there, I mean, am I better at having Apple or Facebook having access to my data, or the government having access to my data?
Yeah, of course, governments can be good and then they turn evil. And then they use the same tools against us, like social media. But this also has to, eventually we're going to look at international global regulations on this. So, for example, if you're using social media to persecute people, there is already movement against that being good or not, like in Hong Kong, Even the Americans are saying, you guys, this can't be happening, right? No. And in Brazil, we're saying, you guys can't burn down the rainforest because that's going to be bad for us, right? So I think this is a global issue, and it's not like the government is the fix for this. Government is sometimes the reason, in certain places, not to be named. But I think then it also depends.
We know who they are.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to have a sort of a global consensus on why this is possible. Right now, it seems like that's only at the surface. Because technology is not perfect. It's not unlimited. For example, language translation. You can speak in your phone, and it will just get like 1/10 of what you're trying to say. But in 5 years, we're looking at technology. It can go inside of your head.
So maybe that's where we're. I mean, obviously we have many things going on here, and you touch upon a number of these in this one, right? I mean, we have this concept of deep fakes, right, which is pushing the capability of actually exceeding our ability to recognize that it is in fact fake, right? So, but it sounds like when we talk about technology where it is at this current point, it's failing to some extent. We still are able to, as humans, apply some of our human ethics, our social thinking into actually governing that it doesn't get too far. Is this the moment where we have the ability to take control before it gets too advanced and we cannot take control?
Yeah, in many ways Facebook is the initial case, the test case for this, right?
Because we did court Cambridge Analytica, right? We did see that it actually
but of course
went too far.
There are dozens of things that are going on that we haven't seen. And I think the thing is that we're at this sort of pivot point where we're saying, okay, right now there's a little bit of this, but this is growing exponentially. And so also this is a great opportunity for marketing, because in my view, to do the cheap way of marketing is to milk the data and data mine and spam you, right? Like we used to do on email, And now we can't do email anymore. Now we have to think of something more sophisticated. This is a way of saying, like we went from television to the internet, We became more sophisticated. And now we're going from the internet to basically the global network, the Internet of Things, and the fourth industrial revolution. Now we need to actually catch up with the creativity there and think of some new ways of doing this. And I think there's plenty of options, and not be intellectually lazy about just building a mousetrap using AI.
Now, a thing you thought about, which intrigues me, is the fact that if you take an event like this, now everyone is packing stuff down and they're about to leave, right? But it's basically a marketing event, and marketing back in the day was really about persuading someone into buying something that they may or may not actually need, right? So and we got to the point where we have more and more technology, we have more and more data, in which case we can actually put things together, and then we call it kind of AI, and then we can be more and more autonomous, and we can be more relevant and personalized. Now you talked about rehumanization. You talked about this point that, I mean, it's still intuition that drives some of the greater decisions. I think you had the quote or two quotes from Jeff Bezos of Amazon, and the second one being, well, my most important decisions, they were based on intuition. Is it really so that we are still able to actually control that we can apply intuition into marketing, or are we just way beyond that and it's all about data?
Well, that's a general question. If humans are primarily made out of data or not, And basically, my belief is that humans aren't machines or computers. I think it may turn out in 30 years that most of what we are can be captured by a computer. But today, that's not the case, right? We are actually the opposite of a machine, right? We're totally inefficient. We make up stuff. We're not binary. We change our mind. We lie. We're completely the opposite of a machine. A machine is, compared to us, far ahead in terms of information,
much easier to
but also far backwards in terms of actually catching anything. So our reality is not data. It's quite a bit beyond data, and that doesn't mean we can't use data to capture it, right? But as I said, too much of a good thing can be a very bad thing. And I think the understanding of marketing, as storytelling, as narrative, that's how it all got started. That's why we had soap operas, right? And now we did the same on the internet. We have to go back to this idea of actually connecting with people with meaningful things rather than with traps. And what has been happening since social media is to say, well, here's a good way that we cannot spend any human time on anything. We just build this giant engine and it just makes money. Right? And boom, here we are, and then we're wondering why we feel lonely, because it's like, it's just a machine.
So it's the storytelling part, it's the meaning part that technology at this point failed to
because the technology doesn't understand meaning, Technology will never understand why this is funny. It could have a research study on saying why you think it's funny, but it doesn't know what funny is, only in terms of data. So it doesn't know what sad is, or it doesn't touch on any of the things. I think Moravec, the researcher, once said, whatever is hard for technology is simple for humans, and vice versa. And this is the story about marketing, because I got to fill it with some sort of meaning. And influencing is one thing, and massaging people into buying stuff, that's one thing. But when you build a perfect trap based out of your 500 million data points and your mobile position and all that stuff, that is not just a territory where it's good to go. That's, in my view, is stretching the imagination of what is good.
I noticed back, I think 1 year ago, I saw a short movie that was based on a script that was done by an algorithm, right? So a movie script done by an algorithm, and then you had people filming this, a sci-fi movie. It was pretty crappy, right? Basically meaning that if you put an AI to actually, you can feed in a lot of information about the different movies, and then you can make this perfect script. Now, that still seems to fail to capture the essence and the meaning.
Well, I think on that it's just a question of time before an AI can simulate the top, say, 500 million movie scenes, and construct a film out of that. I think David Byrne once said, the musician, that AI can play good music or make good music, but it can't make great music because it doesn't have the guts.
No,
right?
I agree.
Right? And I think that is the real difference between machines or simulations. Right? So you can buy yourself a robot and marry it if you wish. It is a simulation, and if that's enough for you, then it's to help you, right?
So it stops at simulations, basically. I mean, there was also an AI that did a Beatles song, right? Or it sounded as if it was Beatles. You could probably do Talking Heads as well, but it's all simulating stuff that has already been created.
Well, most humans are like, they know what is a simulation, and sometimes it's enough if it's a simulation. Think about prostitution, right? It has a certain function, but then if you mistake that for the real thing, you're in deep trouble, right?
So let's end on that note, pushing to the end here. I mean, what's the difference between simulation and reality when it comes to marketing? I mean, is simulation what we should strive for, or do we still need that additional layer of reality?
I think sometimes simulations are not a bad thing. We have friends on LinkedIn, we have friends parentheses, but I think we need to strive for the real connectivity if we want to really be successful. And the brands that do this, like Patagonia and others, that I mentioned in my talk, they build real relationships, and they can do different things. And they're capable of doing, like Apple, capable of doing, the unspeakable things that nobody else would go for. And this is the kind of thing that we need to have. And I think sometimes, you don't need to have a relationship for everything, like toilet paper or whatever, right? But generally speaking,
obviously
I think
not, or hopefully not.
Not everything is going to be in the same vein, right? But clearly, that is the gold standard of future marketing, right? Is to use technology for that, rather than to use it to sort of cover up everything else and just trick people into doing something.
So there's still hope for us.
We have 10 years to figure this out. We are still very much at the beginning of this curve.
So there's 10 years there, right? And then it's the end.
Yes, but I think marketing is a great profession. So we just have to not go into the temptation of building mousetraps. Again, I'm saying sometimes a mousetrap is good enough, but not generally speaking. We have to go beyond that, and we have to think about something that will be last a little bit longer than a mousetrap.
Gerd, thanks a lot for your time.
You're welcome.
It's been a pleasure. I think I could keep on talking to you. It's very inspirational.
Yes,
and there
until
are
the
many
network runs out.
angles we could take there, but we lose power and we lose network, and they close down the place. So thanks a lot for having you here.
You're welcome. Thank you. Yeah, you record this as well, right?
Exactly, and I think